We all reveal our feelings and attitudes differently. Some of us may wear our hearts on our sleeves for the entire world to see, while others may be more guarded and impossible to read at first. A good portrait photographer is someone who studies people, observing them closely in order to capture their essence. And this is a wonderful, fascinating skill anyone can learn. Next on The Whole Picture. Welcome to The Whole Picture. I'm Erin Manning. You know, there are a lot of elements involved in successful portrait photography, but nothing is more important than the relationship between the photographer and the subject. Now, building a rapport with your subject is really important because it helps them relax and open up, and that gives your pictures a much more natural look and feel. Now, I take a lot of portraits, and many of my clients tell me after they leave the sessions how much fun they had. This is a picture of Rachel. Okay, she's a teenager and she's just kind of hanging out here on the stairs, and she's got a great smile, and I think just looking at this you can tell that she's got a bright, effervescent personality. Okay, now I have a student, Santiago, and he sent me this picture of his wife, Stephanie. He took this a while ago, and I think he's having some problems with this, but just looking at it, you can tell there's a lot of clutter in the background. It's out of focus. I think he's a little too close with his camera. She looks distorted. It's just overall not very flattering. So we need some help. So the first thing I'm going to teach you is a simple three-point lighting setup that will make anyone look good. Then I'll show you some techniques for working with your lens to create the most flattering look. Next, we'll work with poses. That's positioning your subject to bring out their best features. And finally, we'll come back here to the studio and work with the images on the computer to smooth out any imperfections. Now, before we head over to Santiago's, we need to pick up some equipment. Now, the first thing we'll bring with us are these clamp-on lights. Now, you can get these at any hardware store. And I'm also going to bring a backdrop. Now, this is just some fabric that I picked up at the local fabric store, but you know, you could really use anything. Just think about solid colors, things that look nice next to your subject. So you could maybe have a blanket or bed sheets or that throw on your sofa. And we'll need a good sturdy tripod. Okay, I'm gonna head over to Santiago and his wife Stephanie's house. In the meantime, here's a look at some other indoor portraits that I've taken. Coming up, I'll show you how to lighten up, learn how to set the mood on The Whole Picture. Welcome back to The Whole Picture. A great portrait is more than just a picture of a person's face. It's an image that reveals the truth behind a person's external features. It's been said that the eyes are the windows to the soul, and if you think about it, the camera lens is an eye that will give us a glimpse of human nature that's more than skin deep. My student Santiago would like to capture the spirit of his wife Stephanie in a beautiful portrait. I'm going to his home to help him set the stage for the portrait session with a basic portrait lighting setup. Hey, Santiago.
Hey, Erin, how are you? Glad you can make it.
All right.
Why don't you come on in? I'll introduce you to Steph.
Sounds good.
Hey, Steph.
Hey.
This is Erin.
Hi. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Okay, well, you know what? You all picked a fabulous room. Are you ready to shoot some portraits?
Yeah.
Yes.
We've got lots of space here, so I think, would you mind being our lighting model today, Stephanie?
Not at all.
Okay. Well, let's get started then. The first lesson we're going to go over is about lighting. And we're going to do a really basic lighting setup today called three-point lighting. Now, the first is your key light, which is your main source of illumination. And that's going to set the tone for all the other lights, influences all the other lights we're going to set up. Next is the fill light, and that just fills in all the shadows created by your key light. And then next is your backlight, or some people call it a rim light, because what it does is it lights up just the rim, the outline of your subject, and separates them from the background. Now, for example, what I'd like to do, I brought this clip-on light. If you could set this up, Santiago.
Oh, sure, I have an extension cord right here.
Okay, great. What I'm gonna do is plug in this light, and it's a daylight bulb in there, and I'm gonna shine it over your head, and as the light falls on the different planes of your face, we can see how important it is to place this key light in just the right place, okay? Now, this is really going to affect and impact the style of our photograph. Now, as I move it around, see how it affects the different planes of her face? like so, and also the texture of her hair. And if I were to hold it straight above her, it looks like Godfather lighting, right?
Yeah.
Or straight below, we've got a little Dracula action going on. But the most flattering place to put the key light is going to mimic natural sunlight. So that's just like high above, like so, and a little off to the side. When you want to turn your living room into a portrait studio, set up a backdrop against a wall at one end of the room. Pick the wall that will give you the furthest distance away from your camera. To hold the backdrop, we'll use 2 tripod light stands. Place them with the legs extended on the floor about 60 inches apart, or the width of your backdrop fabric. Next, clamp the top edge of your backdrop fabric to the tops of the light stands. I use clamps like these that you can purchase inexpensively at any hardware store. We're using 9 yards of fabric I found in the remnant bin at a fabric store. Now, with a helper, raise the extensions of the light stand completely. Once the light stand is extended to its full height, straighten out the fabric on the floor. Santiago's wife's legs don't quite reach the floor while she's sitting on this stool, so she'll be more comfortable on a lower bench. Benches are also great for portrait photography because the subject can lean back or move from side to side, allowing more flexibility in their movement and poses. Now, on to the lighting. For our key light, which is our main light source, we'll use a 65-watt daylight-corrected bulb. We'll use a less intense 50-watt bulb for the fill light. Now, Santiago has a hat stand we can use to hold this key light. The key light is placed to one side of the camera and slightly above the subject, so this side is well lit, and the other side has some shadow. Next, we position the fill light. It should be placed opposite the key light at a lower angle. We'll attach it to the top of this chair and position it to fill in the shadows created by the key light. Now, the fill light should be softer than the key light, so I've attached a simple dimmer to the light to control the intensity. Last, we'll put the backlight on the light stand holding up the backdrop. The backlight provides definition and subtle highlights separating the subject from the background. You want this light to hit your subject's head and shoulders. And voila! You just created 3-point lighting. Okay, Santiago, your lighting's looking pretty good. But just so you know, with most portrait photography, it's a good idea to have an element of flattery in there. So you want to make your model look real, but also make sure they look their best. So to flatter someone, you want to make sure they look proportionate. For instance, take a look at the photograph I just took of Stephanie. What do you think?
Whoa, that doesn't even look like her.
It doesn't, does it? Well, let's look at the next one.
Oh, that one looks great.
This one looks great. Now, the reason the first one looked out of proportion is because I had the lens setting on the widest angle possible. So to fill the frame with her face, I needed to get in really close to her face. And anything close to that lens is gonna look a lot bigger. So her mouth and her nose and everything looked out of proportion. But that second picture I took, I used the lens setting out on the longest telephoto setting. And that way I had to step back a little bit, but I was able to frame her the same way and make her face look proportionate. Now, for example, most portrait photographers like to use an 80mm lens or longer. Grab that one behind you. I'm going to show you the one I like to use. And this is actually a zoom lens. I'll trade you here. And it zooms from 70mm here all the way up to 200mm. So this way I can get like 10, 15, 20 feet away from my model and still zoom in close, but yet make her face look very proportionate. But you know what? Most people have a point and shoot camera that does have the zoom capabilities that will allow you to get that telephoto setting and still get a proportionate shot. You want your subject to be seen clearly, so focus is important. Let's steady the camera by mounting it on a tripod. Set the leg height of the tripod so that your camera's lens will be slightly above your subject's eye level. For this lesson, we'll be taking head and shoulder portraits of Santiago's wife, Stephanie. When you turn your digital camera on, it will automatically set the lens at its widest aperture. If you simply leave it at the widest point of the lens and walk the camera and tripod in close enough to frame her head and shoulders, her features will be out of proportion and distorted. That's because her nose and forehead will be much more prominent, which is overall very unflattering. So to avoid distorting your subject's features, you want to stand as far back from her as possible and zoom in with your lens. This allows you greater control on your framing and will compress the depth of frame, creating a more pleasing effect. Find the zoom button on your camera and zoom in all the way. Pick up the camera and tripod and walk it away from your subject. Keep moving back until her shoulders and head are nicely framed. Check to see that your flash is turned off, then depress the shutter halfway to set the focus on her face. Next, take a deep breath, and as you exhale, press the shutter button the rest of the way. Your hand will be steadiest as you breathe out. For more information on working with focal lengths, be sure to check out our website at DIYnetwork.com. While you're there, you can also see more of the pictures we took today. Coming up, you'll see some great and not so great ways to pose your subject. Learn tips from the pros on how to pose when the whole picture continues. Welcome back to The Whole Picture. A good portrait reveals something compelling about the subject. What is it you really want your portrait to say about your subject's character? The right pose can speak volumes. I'm Erin Manning, and I'm teaching Santiago Ramirez how to take beautiful portraits of his wife, Stephanie. Now, Santiago, we've gone ahead and lit the scene perfectly, and we have a flattering lens setting on the camera. Now we need to position her. Okay, so posing your model for portraits is really important. And you can have a lot of fun with it too.
Well, that makes sense.
Yeah, because you want her to be relaxed, right? So talk to her, have some fun, tell a joke or two, whatever you can do to help her relax.
Okay.
And portraits don't always have to be just a headshot. They could be 3/4 length or full length. Like Stephanie's a surfer.
Yeah, she loves to surf.
Okay, you could take a picture of her with her surfboard. That'd be a fun shot.
Yeah, that would.
Yeah, and you know, a lot of other people like to connect with people's eyes in a photograph. And that helps bring the viewer into the picture, so you could frame the shot really tight if you wanted to, and that way reveal even more of your model's personality.
Oh, that's great.
First, get your subject to sit comfortably on the stool, chair, or floor. Portraits don't have to look formal. Move her into a comfortable position and remind her to shake her head and relax. And remember, there's nothing more relaxing than taking a deep breath and exhaling a long sigh. If you're using a chair or bench, set it at an angle to the camera. Because when the seat is square to the camera, people tend to sit with their shoulders square to the camera. This puts their shoulders straight across the picture and exaggerates the width of their shoulders, and it's just not all that dynamic. But setting the bench at an angle to the camera will automatically suggest that your subject sit with her shoulders slightly turned away from the camera. This angle is generally more flattering. Subjects rely upon the photographer to provide them with direction regarding posing and expression so they look their best. Don't be afraid to give direction. Relax. At first you might feel silly, but you'll get the hang of it. Try working with different tilts of the head. Now let's look at the eyes. If your subject is looking up, her eyes will be smaller and less open. Ask your subject to lower her chin a little and look at the camera, and you'll see how her eyes open up much more. You can try having your subject lean back, keeping her eyes focused on the lens, or go for a pouty look. Props or costumes work well for portraits. A scarf can completely change the mood of a portrait, or be something to bring out the wild side in your subject. If you find your subject is starting to make frozen smiles, get them to fill up their cheeks with air, hold it, and then blow it out. This relaxes the face, making way for a more natural smile. The possibilities are infinite. Experiment and start your own file of poses for quick reference, just in case you find yourself in a photo session needing some inspiration. That's great. Okay, well now let's say you want to take a portrait and you don't have time to set up the lights and the backdrop. You can just use this portrait setting here on your camera. Now most digital cameras have them. It's denoted by the little face on this mode dial. Now when you use this, you'll be able to get a pretty good looking portrait. But if you use it in conjunction with the red eye reduction flash, this will help you get a way better than average portrait. Okay? So keep practicing on poses with Stephanie and take lots of pictures, and come to my studio tomorrow morning and we'll work with some software that will improve any lingering imperfections. Not that you have any, but you know, just in case.
Great.
All right?
Thanks, Erin. Thanks for all your
You're
help.
welcome. I'll see you there tomorrow.
Thank you.
A little bump on the chin from eating too much chocolate before the photo shoot? After the break, we'll learn how to smooth our subject's skin tone and remove any blemishes with computer software. Next on The Whole Picture. Welcome back to The Whole Picture. My student Santiago would like to capture the spirit of his wife Stephanie in a beautiful portrait. Next, I'll show you how to correct any lingering imperfections so that your photos will really be picture perfect. Okay, now Santiago, did you take a lot of pictures after I left?
Yeah, actually, we set up the self-timer and we put it on the tripod and we started just taking pictures of ourselves just to see what would come out.
Oh, great. Well, let's take a look. Let's
Okay.
start clicking through and see. This one's nice, actually.
Yeah.
Good energy between you two.
Yeah, it looks good.
That's great. Let's check out the next one. That's a little close. Remember how the lens distortion, if you get up too close, it makes things look a little strange.
Yeah.
Although it is kind of an interesting look. You know what? This is great. Let's try working on this. All right, let's start by, we'll come up here to the menu bar and just go to File, Save As, because we want to save this as a copy. And this way we'll only work on the copy and we'll archive the original. So just name it something different. We're working in this image editing software program and the basis of it is layers. So we're going to be working on different layers. So let's create a duplicate layer so we can work on that. And we do that by coming over here, just click on More to that little drop-down menu and roll down to Duplicate Layer. And go ahead and click OK. We'll just call it the copy. Now we're working on a copy on top of the original. So let's go in. You know, I'm thinking I see something on her cheek here.
Yeah.
And she really doesn't have many imperfections, but let's check this out. And we'll do that by, we come over here to the toolbar, and actually we're already highlighted on the zoom tool. And just go ahead and point that right over that little, whatever that is on her cheek, and we'll see what it is, okay? Great. You know, it looks like it's an eyelash. Let's get rid of that.
Okay.
And here's how we're gonna do it. Let's come over here to the toolbar. We're gonna click on the clone stamp tool, right here, about halfway. There you go. Now, if you bring your pointer out over this is, the circle represents our brush size, which is actually working for us pretty well. But you know what, let's come up here to our options bar at the top and change the opacity to something that's maybe a little bit more than 37%.
Okay.
So it's not as translucent, it'll cover up a little bit more, maybe to 70 something. And great, okay. Now let's come back in here, and what we're going to do is clone. So we're going to duplicate pixels from one part of the image and cover up this imperfection. So the way we do that is get, you know, maybe close to it so you get similar skin color.
Okay.
And I'm going to hold down the Alt Option key here. Now your pointer becomes a target. If you click a couple times, go ahead and click, you're actually going to kind of pick up some pixels here. All right, now I'm going to let go of the Alt key and it becomes the brush again. Put that right over the eyelash and click. See what happens. Ta-da, it's starting to go away.
It's disappearing.
Okay, now let's come up here, and she has like a little mascara and things. Now that we're zoomed in really close, we might as well get rid of that too. And to get rid of that, you know what, let's change the opacity back to something a little bit more translucent, so maybe 30 something.
Okay.
Because we want to get rid of this, but we still want it to look natural.
Yeah.
Now remember how we did this before? I'm going to hold down the Alt key, okay, and you're going to click kind of close to that area. Click, click,
Right there.
click, to pick up some pixels. I'm going to let go. Now go ahead and just sort of paint lightly with holding your mouse button down and drag it over that area.
That looks like the way it should look.
Exactly.
I
Okay,
can't even remember what we had before.
let's come up here to File, and we're going to save it. And let's go ahead and print it out. If you'd like to learn more about portrait photography or do a little of your own digital plastic surgery, just log on to our website at DIYnetwork.com. Okay, Santiago, are you ready to see the final print?
Yes, let's see it.
Okay. Ta-da!
Great. She looks awesome.
Doesn't she? Well, she's beautiful already. But the picture looks great because, first of all, you put up this background, so we got rid of all that clutter behind her, and the lighting's really nice on her. And of course, she's got this great personality, so that comes out too. And remember, you use that lens setting, so there's nothing that's distorted.
Looks awesome.
It
And
does.
We took out that little eyelash and some of the hairs. It looks like it was professionally done.
It does. Well, yes, and you're getting even better.
Well, thank you.
Well, keep up the good work.
Thanks, Erin.
Keep taking pictures.
Okay, we will.
And it was a lot of fun working with you today.
Thanks, Erin.
Thank you. I hope you'll use what you learned today and take your own great portraits. Join me next time on The Whole Picture. Okay, cool. That's nice. Let's try.